trending burning question powered by Reva University and Century Ply Laminates.
Welcome back, friends, to this 8:30 p.m. section of Trending Burning Question. We are discussing something which is of consequence for millions of students of the country and hence the destiny of India, the national education policy. Karnataka government today announced that it is scrapping the NEP and are going to bring a state-specific education policy. In fact, Karnataka becomes the third opposition-ruled government which wants to do so, the earlier ones being Tamil Nadu and Kerala. I'm really short on time, so just explaining what the debate is before we head straight into the conversation, cutting down the package. Essentially, the national education policy was brought in by the central government in the year 2020. This was after a gap of almost 34 years. The last one was in 1986. So that's the significance of this revision, a comprehensive review of India's education system that has happened. The NEP plans or wishes that at some stage in near future, India has 6% of its GDP between the central government and the state governments spent on its education and its education infrastructure. Also, it aims to improve gross enrollment ratio, making it 100% in the primary section and 50% in the senior level, at the senior level by 2035. And then it also says that education should be given in mother tongue in the primary school education level between class 3 and 8, and that there should be universal access to education. So these are the broad contours of the national education policy. It sort of creates a superstructure, and the states are left to create their own superstructure, state-specific requirements to fill in and then take it forward. But then opposition thinks that this has been the handiwork of the BJP and perhaps behind the scenes by the RSS. That's why we are seeing this one after another opposition ruled states coming out and saying they don't want to do anything with the NEP, and that's what we are discussing today in the light of a decision taken by the Karnataka government. Joining me, Captain Ganesh Karnik. He's former MLC and spokesperson of the BJP in Karnataka. And we are also joined in by Professor Chandan Gowda. He is from the Institute for Social and Economic Change. He brings in the academic heft to the debate. And I begin with Sumant C. Raman, political analyst, leans towards the Congress party, live from Chennai. Sumant Raman, if I could begin with you. You know, what are the objections? You heard the objectives. You heard the broad sweep of the national education policy. Is the objection just that it has been brought by the Modi government and you want to oppose everything that's done by the Modi government, including the surgical strikes, even if it's in the best interest of the country?
I think, Abhishek, we have to go through the detailed papers which the Kerala and the Tamil Nadu governments have already prepared as a list of issues that they have with the new education policy. This is not just, now let me state my position on this. I think that there are many good aspects of the new education policy. And I think that the center needs to engage with the states. Like, these are not just about any other states. These are among the most literate states in the country. Kerala has among the highest literacy rates. Tamil Nadu has the highest gross enrollment ratio. So they should know a thing or two about education. Therefore, I think it's very important that the central government engage with these governments. It's not just opposition states are not implementing. Why is West Bengal implemented? So I think that you have to understand that there are issues which need to be discussed and debated. For instance, Tamil Nadu had a problem with the clause which said vocational training would be given in parallel. So they wanted to review that. So there are certain things. Initially, you remember the first draft said that those from non-Hindi speaking states must learn Hindi as the third language. That was then subsequently revised following a protest. So there are genuine issues. Let's not brush it under the carpet. Yes, I think there are many good points in the new education policy, but this my way or the highway kind of approach is what the states are objecting to.
Okay, Captain Karnik, is it my way or the highway which is rankling some of these politicians in opposition-ruled states who are in power now in Kerala, in Karnataka, in Tamil Nadu, and perhaps the approach is the issue, not the broad framework about which even someone like a Sumant Raman seems to be broadly in agreement? Mr. Karnik?
Abhishek, good evening, and good evening to the co-panelists, Mr. Chandan Gowda and Mr. Sumant Sharan. I appreciate his views. There are some good points. That is what he mentions. Whether it is my way or highway, how can anyone ask this question? This policy was adopted in 2020, NEP 2020. Before that, there were two deliberations,
Yeah.
and there are more than 2 lakh suggestions received by the so-called, the commission. And based on that, none other than Dr.
Yeah.
Kasturi Rangan came out with a good report. And when you say there is no deliberation,
Yeah.
Karnataka BJP government was there. We had deliberations, and we took it on ourselves to introduce this subject. And education being in the concurrent list, definitely state-specific, changes, requirements can be addressed to. Now, in Karnataka, they have blindly removed it. They have not
Yeah.
given any excuses. At least Mrs. Suman Sharan told me that in Kerala and in Tamil Nadu, they have made some observations. So there can always be debate, there can be discussion, there can be consensus.
Okay.
But outrightly rejecting state policy and then central policy and then saying that we're going to have our own policy, that is not in the interest. When we are talking of cooperative federalism, what is this? What is the stand taken by Karnataka government?
Yeah.
Do they have the right to say we don't believe in cooperative federalism?
Professor,
I don't think they have
Yeah.
any value
It seems-
in Karnataka for rejecting, except that they don't like Modi government
yeah.
to have brought in a forward-looking,
Yeah.
most advanced, and intellectually oriented requirement
Sir,
of the present
Yes,
generation.
Captain Karnik.
That kind of
Why
thing we
did
don't
the
want to
initial
do.
draft
Yes, Captain
say
Karnik.
Hindi is compulsory? Why did the original draft?
Yes, Captain Karnik.
say
No, I'll come to
Hindi
you,
will be
Sumantraman. Hold on.
compulsory?
Let me go to Professor Gowda. Professor Gowda, is Karnataka government of the Congress party guilty of throwing baby out with the bathwater because of their own political objectives? Because even Sumantraman says, okay, fine, there's some aspects which are good. There are some issues which the government could have discussed. Obviously, even the Karnataka government, like in the case of Tamil Nadu government, could have given its suggestions and discussed.
I think it is precisely in the discussion phase. It's put on hold. If you listen to the higher education minister and a few other ministers, they're all saying there are pros and cons to this policy. We want to retain the good things and re-examine the things that we think won't suit this state. So it's very much the same stand as Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Please remember, Karnataka was chosen as the pilot state for the implementation of NEP in the entire country. And the Congress is right to ask, why were we picked of all the states, were the other states, etc. Be that as it may, they had a meeting with the Vice Chancellor this morning, a 3-hour meeting, after which they've said there are too many problems with the implementation of this thing. It requires radical restructuring of the existing order. So we'll need time. So we'll come up with a state education policy in a year's time, which will be a blend of the good elements of the NEP and some replacements that to suit the Karnataka model. I think it's completely it's the same response.
So is it?
It is not.
So is it
vendetta,
just?
It's not vengeance. It is not trying to say we don't want anything that's being
Okay.
devised at the center.
If it's not vengeance, if it's not vendetta, it seems just optics then. It's just theatrics then, perhaps. It's just theatrics and optics that the Congress party wants to project. Oh, we are opposed to whatever the government does, and we are going to see whether there is a motivation from the RSS. That's why they're doing it.
No. Abhishek, I'm on the academic council of a few colleges, and everyone is simply exasperated about the transition. It's very, very difficult. What the exit policy, the students can leave at 2 years and join any other college. These things can't work the way the existing setup is structured. So I think the concerns are legitimate. Let's just see what happens in the next, year, the SCP. But they're going to continue it for this year. They're not going to discontinue the current policy for this year. It's only the next year that we'll see some changes.
Yeah, okay.
And
whenever a reform comes, whatever the degree of reform, Professor Gowda,
released to the public.
Whatever the degree of reform, Professor Gowda, we have seen the case of economic reforms, we have seen the case of social reforms. Whenever a reform comes, Professor Gowda, we see resistance building up in the system before it breaks, and then people accept and then they realize the benefits of the system, like it happened post economic reforms in 1991. So perhaps it's happening in this case, because you mentioned the exit clause, the possibility of entry and exit, flexible entry and exit. I mean, when we were in school or college, we were in college 30 years back, 25 years back, we would be starry-eyed about the fact that in the United States, you can pick both physics and metaphysics together. You can study history and maths together. Those options were not available in India. It's being talked about in the national education policy. So I think there are a lot of good things happening and mentioned in this. And even entry and exit, because you mentioned the vocational training aspect, for example, to which Tamil Nadu has an objection. The fact is, if you come out of college with a degree which has not given you any exposure to the shop floor, as one would say, then you are essentially producing unhirable graduates. That's a problem we faced when we were in college, because we came out of college with a very theoretical degree, from the university with a theoretical degree, and we were unemployable graduates, even in engineering. So I think these are important aspects which have been brought in, and because
they need to be discussed.
Which means people
you mentioned something, I missed it.
Carry on in the studies are likely to choose a vocational track. Yes.
Okay. Okay, because you mentioned discuss. I have Sumant Raman, because you said that consultation has to happen, not my way or highway. You know, before the education policy was brought in, there was a Central Advisory Board of Education meeting in which all the state education ministers were represented. Just giving you a sample quickly of what all they said. Manish Sisodia, the Delhi Education Minister, not of the BJP, saying, I congratulate the ministry and the team of NEP for the good work they have done. And he made some suggestions which were incorporated. Govind Dotatra of the Congress party from Rajasthan, he said, I appreciate and thank the minister for organizing this. Here are some suggestions, please take them. Telangana, again not a BJP state, represented by the education secretary, said, made a suggestion on mother tongue being integral to pedagogy in the primary section. And that has been incorporated. So it's not that consultation did not take place. Finally, for the curriculum framework, 500 district level consultations, 50 interministerial consultations, 12 lakh stakeholder feedback from 8,000 plus institutions. Sumant Raman, I think the intent and the content, both of the national education policy are in the larger national interest.
Abhishek, 1 second. At the end of all these deliberations, they came out with a draft which said everybody in non-Hindi speaking states must compulsorily learn Hindi. That was protested to very, very strongly. I think you're not aware of the entire background. And then it was dropped. They said, the first draft.
Quickly, last 30 seconds to Captain Karnik. 30 seconds. Because he has made a charge. Sumant Raman has made a charge. 30 seconds only, Professor Karnik. Unfortunately, I've run out of time. 30 seconds. 30 seconds to rebut what Sumant Raman said.
False charge, and NEP envisages focus on local language, regional language. It is written in black and white in the policy. And at the primary level,
it's black and white,
primary level, and high school level, it is a focus on regional language.
Unfortunately, I have run out of time. Mother tongue instruction is written in black and white in the national education policy. In fact, my dear panelists, in fact, the NEP goes on to say that education on instruction at the primary level has to happen in all the 22 scheduled languages in the country, and I think that's a most important aspect of this policy. But then the fact is that it's only a superstructure, a broad superstructure. The states are absolutely free to improvise on it. I think what the Karnataka government is doing is playing to the gallery, to their constituency, by saying we are scrapping it. Maybe, as Professor Gowda suggested, it would be a mix and match of whatever good is there in the NEP and whatever the Congress government deems fit. On that note, thank you so much for joining us in this lively debate, something which concerns nation's destiny, because it concerns the youngsters and their education. Hopefully we'll continue this conversation. Short break. On the other side, Editor-in-Chief Arnab Goswami is back with the debate.